Welcome back to the channel. In case you missed the first part, we shared a deeply emotional and raw story from someone who caught their wife cheating after nearly 20 years of marriage. The writer had been working out of town only to return home early and discover their worst fear: their wife in bed with another man. The writer, initially consumed by anger, went to a family cabin to think things through. With the help of their supportive brother, they decided to focus on the future rather than act impulsively. They made the painful decision to cancel their vacation plans and began researching divorce options. Now, here's part 2 of the story. When she arrived home, she came in as usual, eager to give me a hug and kiss, but I turned away. She asked again what was wrong, and I told her she needed to start being honest with me. She feigned ignorance, but I wasn't buying it. I told her if she couldn't be truthful, I was leaving. She panicked and asked if I was talking about yoga. It was a start. She admitted she hadn't been going to yoga, but had been taking walks to de-stress. I pressed her, asking what she was stressed about and why she lied. She blamed the stress of moving, but avoided answering my direct questions. I kept pushing, asking if lying was really the solution. She claimed she didn't want to add to my stress by telling me she'd been taking walks. I called her out on it, saying I wasn't stressed and that I sensed she wasn't telling me everything. At this point, she seemed caught off guard and asked what I meant. I said, "I think you're lying about more than just skipping yoga," and demanded honesty from her. She hesitated before admitting she'd gone out for drinks with some friends last weekend and came home late. I had no idea she'd been out drinking, especially since I was working a couple of hours away. I asked her if she was telling the truth, and she clarified that she'd gone out for drinks but didn't meet the friend she claimed to have been with. When I asked who she was with, she said no one. She just drank alone. Of course, I wasn't buying this, and my patience was running thin, so I asked her if that's a thing now, that she's drinking alone. To which she responds with, "Yeah, maybe I have a problem." I told her to put a pin in her drinking problem and that she had one last chance to be honest, or I was leaving. She looked at me and said she didn't know what else to say, so I just got up and left. Usually, when we have an argument, I go for a drive to get away from her. She probably thought this was the same. Then she realized I took my clothes and toiletries as well as the Xbox. That's when she began blowing up my phone. I told her that I gave her a chance to be honest, and she didn't, so there's nothing left to say. She begged and pleaded with me to come home to talk about this in person. She said she had no idea why I was so upset or what I think she did. She repeated that she loved me and would never hurt me. Just hearing her say that really tore a new hole in my chest. It was always comforting words that I believed without question. Now it's a dull, jagged knife sawing through my heart in the most devastating way. I couldn't handle it, so I hung up. She called back about 40 times before I was ready to answer again. This time she said, "Did you talk to Karen, my best friend?" I asked why, and she said, "Come home. I don't want to say this over the phone." I agreed and drove around a little longer to get my heart rate back down. Then I went home and she started with, "I assume you spoke to Karen?" I just stared at her. So she continued talking about how a few weeks ago, while I was at work, they went for drinks. A couple of guys started buying them drinks, so they just played along. When they were leaving, one of the guys tried to kiss her, but she pulled away immediately and told them she was married. Then she said how bad she felt about it and wanted to tell me, but she was an idiot and just decided to hide it from me. She also tells me that Karen hooked up with the other guy and gave his friend my wife's number. Without asking, he has texted her a few times since, but she has never written him back. After all that, I simply asked her to let me see her phone, and she gave it to me. It was completely empty of texts, except for myself and her mother. She never deletes her texts, so this was new. I looked at her photos, which were also clean. But then I checked the deleted photos and found one of a guy I didn't recognize. I asked her who it was, and she told me it was the guy that tried to kiss her. I followed up asking her why she took a picture of him, to which again she blamed herself, saying I was just being stupid. I wasn't going to let her get away with that, and pointed out that it's not a reason and to tell me why she did it. She said she didn't know. I'm getting tired of this whole thing by now, and Ask if that's everything she wants to tell me or if there's more. She says that's all she can think of. Once again, I left. I didn't want to deal with the trickle truth. I got in my truck and drove away. She ran outside trying to stop me, but I was already out of reach. I went to the park nearby and just sat on my tailgate and ate my lunch, trying to figure out what to do next. While being there, I began remembering other things that I should have been more aware of. Things like I was working a weekend shift and was in bed early. My wife went out to the club with a few of her girlfriends. I woke up at 4 a.m. and she still wasn't home. I called her a few times, but there was no answer. About 30 minutes later, she called me back and asked if I would come and get her. When I picked her up, she told me that they were trying to hail a taxi but had no luck. A couple of guys that her friend knew stopped and offered them a ride, but wanted to stop at home first. When they got to the guy's house, her married friend went into a room with one of the guys. My wife said she spent some time looking for her, but then eventually gave up and just had a drink in the kitchen with the roommates while she waited. She claims she didn't hear her phone when I tried calling. We fought about this, and she was disgusted by her friend's actions, so she cut that friend out of her life. I thought that was over. Another time, she travelled to visit a close friend in a different city. It was a planned girls' night. There were 4 girls, all getting drunk and watching movies in their PJs. At least that's what I was told. Then she called me around 1 a.m. to say goodnight. We spoke for about 20 minutes, and she repeatedly told me that they were having a great girls' night. Then I heard a guy's voice in the background. I asked who it was, and she denied hearing anything at first. Then it happened again, loudly. She couldn't deny it, so she was like, "Oh yeah, ex-friend took a couple of guys with her. Everyone here is super angry about it." She was drunk and 3 hours away. She left me no choice but to trust her again. We thought about that and why she refused to tell me they were there. She promised never to put herself in that type of situation again. Clearly, that didn't stick. After remembering all those things and the conversations we had about them, I was ready to give this one last shot. I turned my phone back on, and almost immediately, it rang. I answered, and she was screaming for me to come home. I drove back to the house. I walked inside and was immediately confronted by her, bawling her eyes out. She was sitting on the couch repeating, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I asked her, "Sorry for what?" She began rocking back and forth like a crazy person. It took her a good 5 minutes to catch her breath enough to speak, and then she admitted to lying about the guy who tried to kiss her. I looked at her and asked her to tell me what happened. She says that the 4 of them actually went back to his place that night, where they fooled around. I knew it was more than that, but just hearing her say it made me feel dizzy. It felt like the room was getting smaller and there were a million people speaking into my ears at the same time. I think I was having a panic attack. I went to the bathroom and washed my face in cold water until things returned to normal. I went back and asked her what exactly she did. She tried to avoid it, but I pressed, and then she said that he touched her and she gave him head. I knew that wasn't all of it, so I asked her, "Was that it?" And she said yes. I'm really upset at this point and tell her that I'm not playing this trickle truth game any longer and that she either tells me everything right now or this will be the last time we speak. She began bawling again and took another few minutes before she was able to speak. Now she confesses that they met up again and slept together. Immediately followed by, "I'm so sorry. I love you and will do anything to make up for this." Since I know the truth, I ask her just the one time. She pauses and says that if she tells me the truth, please give her a chance to do anything she can to make up for it. I tell her I'll think about it, and now the whole truth comes out. She admits to it being an affair, that they'd been hooking up while I was out of town for work, that it's been going on for almost a month. She tells me he is married and they are about to get divorced. I ask her if he knows she's married, and she says yes. Then I ask if he was having an affair because his marriage is failing. Does that mean she thinks our marriage is failing? She says she doesn't think ours is failing, then continues saying, "I'm so stupid. I hate myself. Please don't leave me. I can fix this." I asked how she would do that, and she said she'd do whatever I wanted, so I asked her, "If you were in my shoes or her affair partner's wife's shoes, what would fix this for you? She answers, saying that knowing the truth and being able to trust me to mean what I was saying. Then she says, "You can trust me. I screwed up and won't do that again." I asked her if she was his wife, would she want to know the truth? She says yes. And I say, then fix this. And that's the end of second part of the story. What do you guys think about the story so far? Is the wife deserved to be forgive? Let me know in the comments section.